on the line?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The agenda, okay, here we go. So we have a big meeting tonight, and I'd like to get started right away. Jared, if you could lead us off. I know that you have been concerned about hiring a business manager, and all I'd like you to do tonight for the committee is outline what's happened and what's brought us to this point, and if in fact you have candidates.
Yes, ma'am. Our assistant business manager notified me at the beginning of July that she was taking another job within the school system closer to family. So she handed in her resignation August 7th, I believe, after the school board at her new employer approved her. We had let the board know shortly after she let us know back in July that she was leaving. We notified the board so that we could start the process of her finding her replacement, as this position is very important at the district. It is, this position does, I want to say, the bulk of the accounting for the district, the day-to-day accounting. So it is something that we feel as the administration needs to be replaced. So we took the steps of advertising the job. We did it in the local papers. We did it on the PA School Business Officials website, which reaches across the entire state, which has over about 2,500 members, both in education and also business, would have access to it. We advertised in the Pittsburgh, kind of what we consider the greater Pittsburgh area, in various accounting associations. And we also reached out to IUP to advertise with their accounting department and career services, as well as the website Handshake, which reaches out to recent graduates of colleges across the nation to try and reach as many people as possible for this position. We collected or received over 20 applications over the past couple of weeks. We did a round of interviews on August 5th where we interviewed 7 people. And then we did an additional round where we interviewed another 3 people as applications kind of came in after the deadline, if we felt that they had the experience or the education that we were asking for as part of the job description or the job advertisement that was sent out. Of the people who we did advertise, 4 of the people had direct school district experience, whether that was as a business manager, whether that was an accountant of some sort within the PA school system. So that's kind of very important because every state has their own way to account for school districts. But the 4 people we did receive had direct school district experience, which we felt was a very good for the position that we have. I was very happy with getting those 4 people. And then the other ones, the majority of them all had at least some type of accounting experience, maybe not directly in school districts, but they did have some type of accounting experience. So 3 people within the school district, myself, our MIS manager, and then Mr. Sahorchak were part of the committee. We all reviewed the applications. So it wasn't just me picking who we were going to advertise or going to interview. So we worked together to pick out the people who we felt both either the experience and the education, or even just the education and some type of related experience warranted some type of interview. So like I said, we interviewed 10 people in total, and we are bringing 3 of those back to the full board tonight for your consideration.
Okay, now what day, assuming that the board acts tonight, what day would this person, what's the date you want them to start?
The current person, her last day was Friday. So right now the district is without somebody. Okay. And going into audit, our local auditors will probably be here at the district in 2 or 3 weeks. And this person works very closely with the auditors. So I would like to get them in here as soon as possible.
Okay.
Knowing that if they're coming wherever they're coming from, I mean, we appreciate a 2-week notice at least. So I'm understanding.
So it's fairly urgent
Yes.
that you get this done. Okay.
Yep.
Understood. Okay. I'll open it up to any questions that they might have of Jared about the hiring, or Mike, if you want to say something.
No, I think it makes sense to move forward tonight. We brought 3 good candidates for the board's consideration. Jared and his team did a good job going through an exhaustive list of candidates. And the one thing I'm pleased with, they made sure there's a wide net spread. As we know, this is important to the board. And I think that was explained through the whole Commonwealth reach through PASBO, as well as IUP, Handshake, and other tools. So I think there was a good effort on part of the administration to search high and low for a good fit for the team. And hopefully the board will see fit with one of the 3 candidates.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Okay. Now, we've had a lot of discussion on the next, and it's a non-agenda item tonight, but the funding for substitute teachers to reduce class size. I've run into a lot of people that are very concerned if something happens with one of the teachers, that we have a significant bench of people to call on. And I imagine these people are greatly in demand right now. So I know that you've developed a plan. You've been working on this pretty seriously in the last couple of weeks. So Jared, if you want to talk to us, or Mike, whoever wants to lead the discussion off on what we're going to do about the substitute teachers and actually how we're going to pay for them.
Sure. Thanks, Madam Vice President. Mr. Kroner, I'll start and then I'll turn over to you. As you know, the board made a decision to make sure we meet the social distancing requirements at the 4 to 5 level, because we wanted to get them back in the school 5 days a week. So what we had to do is work with the association to do an MOU that allows us that authority to do it at a temporary basis. What we're expecting is averaging is about a cost about $150,000 per quarter to make this happen. And the people who are being hired, who recommend tonight, are well aware of the fact that this could be closed and immediately do the closure. So flexibility and understanding is important. We want to be upfront with them about that. But the money we're requesting to do that, we once projected a cost about $250,000 to $225,000. We significantly lower that cost. Also, Madam Vice President, and Jared can go through numbers, but also, Madam Vice President, the one thing we're happy with is we got and sought permission for 8 temporary professionals. We think we now have that number down to 6. So there'll be additional savings there. This is what we need in order to meet the social distancing guidelines at the 4 to 5 levels. And we explained to the public last week that this change is only temporary, that once the pandemic ends, these things could end. And what's going to be key throughout this whole process, Madam Vice President, is flexibility. Right now, we're open, we're a go with the social distancing and mask requirement in place. Who knows what can happen a day, a week, a month from now with regards to the government's regulations or the Department of Health coming down and imposing anything based upon county data. But Jared, can you go over, take some time about how we got to that cost and what that final number would be based on the 6 people for temporary substitutes, sir?
Yes. We came up with an estimated cost per quarter for the each per teacher of about $18,000. With about 6 of those, between the 6 people and some savings, which we're working right now, negotiating with our contractor, because on Wednesdays we will not be busing the full complement of secondary students, so they may not have to, they will not have to do a full secondary run on Wednesdays with our current hybrid schedule. So we're looking at a cost for those 6 teachers of about $100,000 to $120,000 based on or per quarter right now. Funding for that, in some of our discussions, we did have a budgetary reserve of over $600,000 that was in the budget at the beginning of the year and approved in June as part of some of the personnel cuts we made, but still trying to leave those positions in the budget in case we needed them. The administration.
Back up on that for a second. We didn't really cut anybody, but we're deferring. I would say we decided to defer some hiring.
Yes, the positions that we did not fill at the beginning of the school year. We're left in that budgetary reserve, and the administration and principals have worked through the schedules at this point, and at this point those positions are not being recommended to be filled at this time. So it does leave those funds available in 2021 to help cover the cost of these extra positions needed for the reduction in class size, to make sure everybody can come back and be properly social distanced.
So against that 600,000, how many marks do you have potentially against it? So we know we've got the subs now. What else are we looking at that we would have to fund out of the reserve?
As of right now, there isn't anything for certain that needs to be funded out of there. My only thing that I would recommend leaving some room for is, if we're open for the entire year, we have bought a lot of PPE for the beginning of this year to start, not knowing how much we're going to use, how long this is going to go. I would recommend leaving some money in that budgetary reserve also to help cover the cost of PPE that we might need. We've used as much of, all the grant funds that we've gotten so far have gone towards various PPE items, other items due to the shutdown. But I think, depending on how long this goes, we may need to use some of that money for PPE as well, because I don't know that the grant funding is necessarily going to cover all that. But even these long-term subs are not going to use all of that at this point.
Now, before I open it up for questions, how many are you looking to hire, and when do you think we need to vote on it, one way or the other?
Madam Vice President, we have 6. We're looking at hiring 6 temporary teachers, and we have that on the agenda for this evening, ma'am.
Yeah, I saw that. And you haven't changed since you wrote that agenda, so it's 6 people.
Yes, ma'am.
And you wanted to vote. So when's our next meeting then?
September 14th.
Okay, so but tonight you want an answer?
Yes, ma'am. If possible, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it does say non-agenda items, so I'm assuming, I forget if it's on the motion, but it is on the motions tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I thought of something else I wanted to ask you. Oh, and just to be clear, this comes out of the general fund. We're not taking it out of any reserves, other than the 600,000 that he's talking about. Correct?
That's correct.
Yes, this funding would be directly from the general fund.
Okay. And how's it looking right now? What do you think? I mean, I think the public has to understand that this is all up in the air, how these numbers are going to come out. And it's early in the year, but a lot's going to depend on what we collect in real estate taxes and whatnot. So flexibility is the key of the day. But I think it's important to have these teachers for bench strength. So that's and you'll be paying them. How much are you going to pay them a day?
They'll be instructional 1 per diem date. Correct, Jared?
Yes, 90% of that rate of the instructional 1 per diem rate, as per the teacher's contract.
Okay.
Jolie, that's about $250 a day, according to the minutes, the motions on the agenda. Mike, these teachers need to be, we need to act on this tonight so that you can get these teachers lined up and ready to go.
That's what we're respectfully requesting, yes, sir.
Yeah, and part of that getting ready to go will be indoctrinating them into the methodologies and the technology that they have available to them.
That would be correct, sir. In addition to our new reading program with CKLA, as well as our social emotional paths training for 4th and 5th grade that starts tomorrow.
Okay, so if we authorize it tonight, you can have them in seats tomorrow by 9.
They're a very professional group of people. I have no doubt they'll meet the moment and be there, sir.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Anybody else have any questions? Board members? My goodness, no questions. Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay, we're a quiet group tonight for Audit and Finance. Now we're going to get to the...
Don't argue the quiet. Don't.
I agree, Tammy. I think well said. I agree. I'm not complaining. Of course, I'm racing with Walter tonight. How fast can we get through a meeting? So we'll see who comes out on top here. I have been wanting to have a discussion on deferred maintenance for some time, and some recent motions have triggered this need for this discussion. I don't know if Jared has the deferred maintenance with him that he can put up on the screen. If not, that's fine. He can talk us through it. But because of the pressures on the budget, which are very real, and because of the uncertainty, and we don't know how we're going to come out by the end of the year, or how serious or not serious the pandemic may affect us, I think the precautions that we've taken to date in Pennsylvania have thank goodness we haven't been like New York or Florida or Texas, Arizona. So, I don't like to tempt fate, but hopefully, we're going to be able to get open and stay open. And we might have a great year. Our numbers come out according to positive projections. But that doesn't mean that we don't have very real needs in terms of the maintenance of our real assets. And I'm glad Terry's here because he's head of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. So I think we need to kind of have a little bit of a discussion tonight about whether or not we have proper pricing on deferred maintenance. And there was sort of an agreement, I think, among us at one point in time at one meeting where we kind of thought after we did the entrance to East Pike Elementary, we would sort of stop all projects unless they were an emergency until we got a better handle on the numbers this year and what we can afford, because, we have typically the deferred maintenance would come out of the reserve funds, or we set aside that every year. We do have this $8.5 million of bond monies that some of us have felt that, well, maybe we can take emergencies out of the Ben Franklin Bond Fund. I'm not so sure that that's clear what the parameters would be of those bond funds. So I'd like that Mr. Vukovic and Jared to kind of try to come up with the next meeting some guidelines that we might follow, particularly in the event of an emergency. So if the East Pike roof, if we get torrential downpours and monsoons and the East Pike roof causes us more problems than we've expected, where would we look to finance that? So I was hoping, Terry, you could chime in here a little bit from your point of view of your committee, and we could sort of look at that list and try to figure out how serious each one is and what we may find as an emergency before we know it. So Terry, I'll let you talk.
Yeah, Jared did send that list out to all the board members again today. I was just looking at it before the meeting, and I've got to rely on Greg, for his expertise to tell us whether any of those priority ones are a priority one. Looking down through the list, I can't see anything there other than the East Pike roof again that sticks out to me that would potentially cause us a problem if we didn't do it. And Greg, can you say, are there other ones on the list that, if we don't do, are going to cause us some type of problem?
Mr. Kerr, I don't have the list that Jared sent out today, but as far as some of the ones that are on the top of my head that we've talked about in the past when we had the meetings, there are electrical upgrades we need to do at certain buildings that are important that we don't want to keep putting off continually. I remember Horace Mann, the main switchgear there definitely is going to be needed to looked at. Of course, we're looking at the turf. We talked about that when you have the Horace Mann roof, which is nearing its end of life expectancy too. Those are just some of the ones that jump off the top of my head from what I'm thinking.
Randy, I just sent you the spreadsheets. I don't know if you can put it up on the screen, but Greg, yeah, you hit several of them that are in that number one category.
Well, how much do they total to? I need to see the list up on the screen, but we've got it amounts to several million at this point. Just the tier ones.
It's over $1 million. It's probably even below $1.5 million.
Oh, okay, good. Tom, I know you've made some cogent points in the past about how do we know what things are going to cost when the estimates or whatever these numbers could be stale. So do you want to talk about your concern about that a little bit, please?
The numbers have been generated by Greg and Jared as best they can for guidance. I think, Julie, it's probably more important for the building committee to put together a list, not of the number one items, but the things we absolutely have to do, and that would be things that we know are coming up that would affect the academics for this coming 6 months. I would push that we should improve our accessibility whenever we can, but in the way we currently are sitting, I would think even the number one things that we can defer until we get on the other side of January or June of next year, that we can defer that to that point, that we wouldn't be doing budgeting for the summer until after the taxes are collected and we have some idea of what our status is, and what money we have to shift to academics. The most important thing here is to keep the kids in the buildings, can teach them to read and write, and some of these the list you're looking at are things that need to be rejuvenated, replaced, renovated over time. But on a normal year, we'd be talking about it. This is not a normal year. I think we have enough on our plate than trying to go through this in a long-term view. I'd advocate that that the building committee sits down with Greg and determines the list of the things that absolutely have to be done in the next 6 months, and bring that back to the finance committee.
Well, my question is, how stale is the list at this point? And I think Greg can answer. Okay, here we go. It's finally coming.
Well, the list is probably a couple years old.
Yeah.
Well, it is, but it isn't. It was developed. A lot of this stuff came off list from a couple of years ago, but we just approved this when we approved the budget.
Yeah.
So it was redone with Greg's input.
But the atmosphere that this list was developed under is a normal year. This could be a year that we don't replace any teacher desks or we don't replace carpeting. That we could live a year not doing that, and maybe instead of doing 50,000 carpet replacement, we do 10,000. But I think for the next 6 months, we have to take that attitude that if it's not dangerous, if it's not broken, absolutely, then we don't spend the money, we don't authorize the work. And quite frankly, I think our staff is going to have their hands full with cleaning, with keeping us in compliance, with getting these kids in and out of the buildings, at least through January. I'd be more than willing to revisit this with a longer view and after January 1st.
Right, and I've been wondering. My meeting last week was I don't want to say canceled, but there was more of a need last week to have the academic meeting, so we postponed the building grounds meeting, which just was on the agenda, and we were going to do exactly what you just said, Tom, was look at this, reprioritize it, since we are in a different situation from when this was approved.
Yeah, I did mention to Mike and the board that maybe with the Monday's academic committee, it's a pretty light agenda, that maybe we want to give you an hour to do this, or do it on your regular schedule. There's just nothing on this list that has to be done in the next 30 days before the school opens. Am I right on that, Greg?
I could say currently, I would like to say agree with you 100%. We don't know when something like maybe the roof will start leaking at one of a couple buildings. We don't know that, or we end up with something that we've talked about electrically. You never know if something will pop up, but I agree with you 100% where if we can prolong from doing it until at least next summer, that definitely makes perfect sense. And there are some things there that, of course, I mean, we can even prolong some of them even longer. Some of the plumbing, unless we run into an emergency situation, the 35,000 we have there, maybe we won't use a penny of it, or very little of it. The playground, some of the stage repairs, we really do need to act on some of those. I believe we should go. And Ben Franklin fence, it's on there. That was a security item that you'd asked me to get before. But those are all everything we can talk about later at another meeting, as you were indicating.
Or our fence got run over, didn't it?
That's a different fence. That one did get run over, and that one was repaired actually very quickly. Penn Fencing was very quick to react and help us out with that. I really appreciated their help.
Did that cost the district anything, or was there an insurance settlement, or what happened?
We're still waiting from the state police with the insurance on that one. It has been repaired, but
How
we're
much?
waiting from them.
How much was it? Maybe you don't want to stay here, but but it's been fixed. I can find out later. Okay.
Okay.
Are there any on this list, Greg, that you are currently working on? Or that
We have a few desks that we're buying right now that we needed. The carpet replacement. Normally what I like to do with the carpet replacement, I like to take that money and use it at the very end of the calendar year. We get a better deal when we replace carpet, usually in June. Everybody else tries to load it the other way. I've always tried to load it at the very end of the calendar year or fiscal year for us, because we get a better price, because nobody else is looking to put carpet in at that time frame. They're looking, everybody wants to have it approved in July and have it in for the first day of school. I look at it just the opposite, and so far I've always been pretty fortunate on getting what we want at it seemed to be a very good price.
So is it fair to say, I think, to the committee, and then I'd like to hear from the other board members. I think Cinda's here, isn't she? She's always the one that reminds me. Are you here, Cinda?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Cinda.
Hi.
I think that we have to be pretty disciplined about this, because I see deferring all of it for a year if we can, so we can get the budget back in some semblance of normal order, because these are extraordinary times, and we've been, it's been a struggle to even get school open safely. And I see under security improvements, that number's going to go everywhere potentially. But is it safe to say that once we finish the East Pike entranceway project, that absent an emergency, we would not make motions on deferred maintenance unless it comes through Buildings and Grounds and Finance? Is that something that we could all agree to in terms of the emergency funding situation?
I would think that's fine. I know that the architect visiting Ben Franklin caused a stir, and for that situation, I don't think it was intended that a lot of money be spent, that any project was going to be started. It was just a matter of getting to know the new architect, getting to figure out how we were going to work with them, and have them do the beginnings of a project, which we would not pursue until later. So, and I don't remember, I think we tabled that. I don't remember if we approved that or not, but that's the only thing that's going now, as far as I know, that would be spending any money.
The only thing I'll add to that, Cinda, is on my next Building Grounds committee meeting, we are going to discuss the East Pike roof, and just so everybody gets comfortable with like how many bids Greg can get, because he's restricted in the number of bids that he can get. So at least I want to get that figured out. So in case we have to jump on it, it does become an emergency, we have that part figured out.
Is there any way that we could have a little
repair?
film of that roof?
Say again, Julie.
I mean, I'm having a hard time understanding. I've got 3 flat roofs on my home, and I'm just trying to. But this is a different type of a roof on East Pike, and I've never hauled up there myself to look at the roof. But is there any way, Greg, you could take a film of it, or just with your iPhone, and sort of give us some idea? I am concerned about it. I think of everything on this list, the roofs are the most important thing, because if the roof gets real bad, then it just creates all kinds of other havoc.
Mr. Tamarki, that's actually a very easy thing for me to do. I will email that to you, and if anybody else is interested, let me know. I took pictures actually last week when I was up taking pictures of the new addition, when I was recording all the progress that they had done for the new addition there at East Pike for the office. And so I took pictures of the roof that we currently have and some of the areas that were identified as were identified for replacement areas. So I actually have those pictures. So if whoever would like those pictures, just let me know and I'll make sure you get those.
Greg, did the repairs to that roof get completed?
No, that was something that
We couldn't
we
agree.
were held off of because of the wanting the 3 different estimates from the ones we had before. So and those were items that we had sent out, but we've not had a Bones and Grounds meeting to go forward with that.
That
So,
was our last meeting agenda last week.
well, so you were talking about perhaps just being able to get somebody to repair it, which is significantly less than the 800,000 we're talking about. Correct. Okay, so so yeah, I guess if you can do that, it might help. You know, the sooner the better. I don't know I forget how much you said that would cost. For some reason, 6,000 or 16,000 sticks in my mind.
Greg, what would be the budget for repairing the roof at East Pike?
Give me a few minutes and I'll look that up as you're talking.
While Greg's doing that, Julia, I would suggest that we can put the decision on this work in abeyance, but on about the 1st of January, we need to take a look at what we're going to do over summer. At that point, you have some idea what the tax collection's been. If we're going to do some long-term improvements, that would be the time. We would have to get started in January to get that all lined up and ready to go.
Well, realistically speaking, there's not going to be much room left even for 2021, 21, 22. There's not going to be much room left in it. That's why I think that this roof is going to take up most of our time.
No,
Unless the patching works really well.
no, well, there's other things on the list than the roof. And they would need to be vetted and determined by the Buildings and Grounds Committee if any of this work is going to be done over summer. We can't wait till the close of the fiscal year in June to make these decisions. So the Buildings and Grounds would have to start in January at the latest in order to start some of this work if there's things that need to be done over summer. Is my point.
Okay, but until then, we're not going to have motions about it. We're going to wait until the time is right, correct? Am I getting that right?
I believe you're correct. The only thing that would come to the board between now and January would be a roof blew off or something like that.
Well, there's going to be a motion for the roof repair. And that,
okay, I get that.
That needs done pretty quickly because we don't want to be doing that in October.
Yeah, and again, I'm wondering, Terry, if we should give Greg a budget number on that and make that as a motion tonight.
Well, he sent a couple, 2 or 3 estimates.
Yeah.
Say they're between 10 and 15,000 or something like that.
Yeah, and if we repair the roof, the known areas are going to hold for the year. There still may be some roof repair on any of these roofs, but I don't think we should go into. Who has a train?
That's my house. Sorry about that.
It's nice.
I was outside. Okay, the 3 repair quotes that I had was 12,250, 15,775, and 17,753. Those are the 3 quotes that we had.
Did we make a motion that we budget $20,000 and Greg and Terry figure out who's going to get the work and get it started? Can we do that tonight?
I think that has to come out of your Buildings and Grounds, not finance.
I understand, but Buildings and Grounds didn't have a meeting last week to discuss this.
Well, Tom, why are you going to 20,000 when the highest bid isn't even 20,000?
Because when they get up on the roof, and they find a bigger problem, Greg would have some ability to make the adjustments while they're there, as opposed to coming back to the board. This is not like buying a new car that's all right there and done. It gives them a little.
I understand that, but if they've been up there and looked at the roof, they've probably built a little bit of that cushion into the bid in the first place. So I wouldn't expect it. And I would also expect that the 12,250 is the bid that we had initially. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the people that put the roof on originally. So I would assume that we would be going with them just from lowest bid. And so to have an extra $8,000 added to the price just because of things they don't see when they've been up there and looked at it, I don't.
I'm not adding the $8,000 to the work, Cinda. I'm only adding $8,000 to the motion so that it doesn't come back to the board.
How about this, Julia? It seems like we probably have a little bit of time tonight in this meeting. Would you mind if Greg sent those estimates or Jared sent those estimates to Randy and brought them up and we can discuss them? That way, at least we've discussed them in a committee before doing a motion tonight. I feel better about that than just.
No, I'm fine with that. I just think I'm concerned about the roof, and if we can get the thing repaired before the end of September, which is kind of roof season's what, July through September, we ought to do it. But I agree. I mean, I think we don't go any higher than the highest bid, and then if we. So I'm fine if that's what you want. Are you talking about doing them right now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I can tell you that the last time they were up there, well, they sent the bids on the last bid received. I have a June 30th and a July 6th. That's the last time they were up there. So, they are 2 months old already.
Who can send them to Randy?
I already did.
They're on their way.
All right, thank you.
Greg, do you have a preference on these bidders?
All three are approved for the roof system we already currently have. I made sure I did get that to make sure that we didn't have somebody that was not working on something they couldn't get the parts for, or the correct materials, I should say.
Yeah. Do you have a preference on workmanship between the three bidders?
Well, the one that's done almost all the repair work forever was the lowest bidder, which was Tom Dunkel. So that's they have the most experience with our roof, but all three were qualified to work on it. So when it comes to that, as far as with the manufacturer, there shouldn't be an issue regardless which one we picked.
Okay.
So go ahead, Randy, scroll down through. That's the first one from Dunkel. That's for $12,250.
Greg,
Yes.
could you email those to us? I do not want to vote on any kind of a bid that I can't see in front of me and look at, and I can never see what's on these presentations. So if you could email it to me, I'd be glad to look at it.
Okay.
I'm not sure how you pronounce that one, Greg, but that one's for $15,775. And the third one is from, what is it, Strongland? And it's for the 17,007, looks like 53. So if you're comfortable with all three of them, Greg, but you have the most experience with Dunkel and you're comfortable with them and they have done quality work in the past for you. Is that right?
Yes. Sorry. I'm trying to bring everything up on my telephone and send it. It was harder the second time here than it was the first.
Greg,
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. If we approve the Dunkel bid, how much overage should we allow you to have some flexibility with? What's typical for this for you?
Well, normally they're pretty spot on, but it's been a couple months. With excessive heat, I don't know if that has any bearing whatsoever, on the material. It is covered with the stone ballast, so I would think it'd be minimal. If nobody wanted to, well, I guess that's still doing the same thing. I was going to say, you could say a certain percentage if you wanted that, if you didn't want to use a dollar figure. But it doesn't, I really don't have a recommendation on it because I'm not sure if they come up and say, well, look, there's another 100 square foot here.
Yeah, the problem is when they're up on the roof, I want them to fix it. I don't want them to leave.
Exactly.
And we don't want to bring it back to the board in 30 days after the snow hits it. Is $2,000 enough? $1,000 enough?
I would say 2,000 probably definitely be better than one. Once you start the labor to get up there, they're going to have labor anyway. It's the material that they would be using.
Yeah.
So I'd say if it was 2,000, that should be adequate.
So
Not knowing it's a little bit like asking what's going to break on the rental car I have, and I'm not sure.
Yeah. I understand that, but I also understand that we don't want to tie your hands behind your back, and when they find a hole and it costs another $50 to fix it, you can't authorize it.
Correct.
Does anybody else have any comments before we make a suggestion for a motion?
Cindy, did you get that?
We couldn't hear you, Cindy.
I'll check my email. Thank you.
Well, I'm okay with making a motion for the Dunkel estimate and giving Greg some leeway, and I'm okay with the $2,000 leeway also.
Okay, does anybody have it? So are you going to make that, or does that come out of, how do you want to do that logistically?
Well, it should come out of building grounds. So
All right, so you'll make the motion, and I mean, from my perspective, I think it's best to get the thing patched. I really do. So I think that the sooner the better, in case we get real bad weather. So I have no objection. I don't know about anybody else out there. I guess if you do, forever hold your peace.
I would support that, Julia.
So would I.
And Cinda's going to take a look at the emails. Who else is Tamara, are you on?
I am, and I'm fine with that as well.
Okay. And we have, is Barb Barker on? No, Mike says no. So Walters is away. So I think we have everybody else here. Am I forgetting someone?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All righty. So I think we've come to a pretty good consensus. So Terry will put that motion on tonight. Cindy, you're going to look it over, and you might have some additional questions. But I really feel we should try to stick to this from a point of view of audit and finance, that absent a real emergency, other than this little patching job, that we are not going to we're not going to make any motions regarding to deferred maintenance until such time as this winter, when buildings and grounds can really look at the list critically and start to plan for the summer. But otherwise, I don't see much wiggle room in the budget at this point. And then, of course, some parameters. There may be some projects that logically could come out of the Ben Franklin Bond Fund, particularly relative to, what do you call that, Plan Con, between East Pike and Ben Franklin. I don't know. I think we have to take a look at that and get a little more clear on it, but I don't think we have to do that at the next meeting at this point. Is that okay with you, Mike?
Yes, ma'am. It makes sense. Right now, we're into pretty seriously trying to open school, and that allows us to focus our attention where it needs to be, and we'd greatly appreciate that.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments about deferred maintenance or anything for the good of the order? We're done kind of early. I don't know what time when does executive session start? 6:30?
6:30, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Any good news? Any happy news?
The only other item on there, Madam Vice President, is just an update to the board on where we're at with the close of 1920. By the end of this month, we should have a pretty good idea as to where we are closing 1920 as far as revenue and expenditures. And our auditors will, like I said earlier, the auditors will be coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks to start their audit and help us close down the books for last year. But hopefully by our meeting in September, we will be able to at least at that point present an estimate for where we ended the 1920 school year at.
Okay, we expect good news.
I'm hopeful that I will have it for you.
Okay, good. You work real hard on that. We really are very serious about that. So, you know, sometimes in ancient Greece, they would kill the messenger. So we want to have good news.
We've come a long way since then, I hope.
In 3,000 years, yes, we've come. Alrighty. If nothing else, then I'll see everybody at executive session at 6:30.
Okay. See everyone then.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.